right. Welcome to the Prospect Podcast. We got a great treat for you this week, starting off this week on a Tuesday. It's going to be a really great podcast. We're going to talk some DB. We're going to talk DB play. We're going to talk some defense and some scheme there. And we're talk about a journey of a coach who's really doing some great things. Has definitely a wide variety of background as far as schools he coached at over the years, but really is one of the young stars in the coaching industry as a defensive back coach, and so we're excited to talk to him. Before we do that, I have Coach D as always to my left, and we're excited to get this week started off as we didn't do one yesterday. So we have Coach KK Roundtree with us today. Coach, welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate you guys having me on today. Really appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to be working with some Jersey guys. Kind of like I got my football background started as a coach back in the day. So thank you guys again.
No doubt. I think that was what, Pope John, or was that yep,
Yeah,
yep.
John.
No doubt. And coach's background is really phenomenal. Not just as a coach but as a player. He was a three-time All-Academic All-Conference at Wilkes University, playing outside linebacker and safety. He then went on to, join the staff with the Los Angeles Rams as a Bill Walsh Fellowship in 2022. He was with the University of Connecticut from 2019 to 2023 with Stonehill College as well as defensive back coach with Pope John in his early years as a coach. Like he had mentioned, coaching multiple different positions there, special teams coordinator. Who was the coach that you coached with at Pope John?
So the head coach I worked under was Brian Carlson, and Don
Carlson.
Gack,
That's what I thought.
Now
okay,
the head coach now. He was a DC, but him and I worked very close hand to hand with defense and special teams. Kind of one reason why we were pretty good on both those units in all 4 years together.
No doubt. Yeah, he was an excellent coach. That was a great group you worked with at that time there. And then obviously most recently defensive pass coordinator, defensive back coach at Carnegie Mellon University. He's coaching not just guys that are good at football, but possibly some really brilliant minds there as well. So really great background. Played at the Division III level himself. Obviously coached, at the Division I level, coached at high school. He's really coached at a variety of different levels. And obviously coaching now at the Division III level, at a high academic Division III level. So it's really a cool journey you've been on. I'm sure it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it as a coach, as it invariably is for almost all coaches, right?
Listen, we lived it, buddy. We've lived it.
So, give us kind of. I gave the the high level resume background, but if you could kind of take us along your journey, from the time you're a player to getting into coaching to really, your journey throughout that process.
Yeah, so for me, I'll tell you, when you look at my coaching journey, my journey with football, you got to go back to my childhood. I was a basketball kid, all growing up in Long Island, Central out in Suffolk County, big sports community, big basketball community, but football was always a big staple within that community. High school DC, substitute teacher, high school classmate, all playing the NFL, but wasn't until I got into high school football that kind of became my niche. Basketball was fun. You only allowed 5 fouls. Football is unlimited hitting within the target zone, so that kind of became more natural for me. Kind of give up basketball, went into football, but football was awesome. Had the opportunity to play 3 years at CI, Central High School. Moved on to Wilkes. Decided I was going to hang up football kind of early. A lot of people don't know this. Dislocated my elbow my junior season. That was kind of the end-all be-all of my playing career. Decided to kind of really focus on school. Really get an accounting degree at Wilkes University, work on getting a CPA, certified public accountant. So I did that. So I was out of football for about 3 years between senior year, grad school, and then after school working at PricewaterhouseCoopers in New Jersey. So that's how I got to New Jersey.
Okay.
I realized that it wasn't football. Accounting brought me to New Jersey, actually. So I did that for about 1 year, and it was so funny because one of the big goals of mine as an accountant was to work on the NBA team. something I was able to accomplish my first year there. Last 3 clients were actually Washington Wizards, Memphis Grizzlies, and Dallas Mavericks. So awesome opportunity, climbing the accounting ladder, meeting some good people, networking. But there was a void. And we all know that void, how it feels, and just something fell off, something didn't feel right. And then what it was, I gave up football too soon. I walked away too soon after the injury. Instead of trying to fight and come back, frustrated with the sport at the time, needed some space. So left the accounting world, got into high school coaching in New Jersey. And it's funny how I got into high school coaching. Didn't really know people. So I'm just, how you guys reach out to me, I'm just cold calling. I'm sending emails out. I had 2 people. I had one guy get back to me, Dale Fusco of Mountain Lakes. He's the one guy who got back to me. We sat
Great
down.
human being.
A great
human being, by the way.
Phenomenal human being. And I'm not even sure he realized what he did for me that day either. So he sends my email out to Jerry Gallagher. I'm sure who you guys know.
Yep.
Rest in peace.
Coordinator of Morris and Sussex County back in the day. He sends my email out to every head coach in Morris and Sussex County. That next day, Brian Carlson from Pope John, the only coach, he emailed me back from that chain. Hey, man, come up to school today. We might have something open. So I come up there. We're hanging out, was chilling for a little bit, hires me on the spot. Next day I come to the office, drop the remote there. We're talking about special teams and everything. He just hands me a manila folder like this. I said, Coach, what is it? Because I open it completely empty. He goes, that's special teams. I need you to organize it. So that's how I got into special teams as a high school coach. That was got thrown into the fire pretty quickly.
Sounds about right.
First 2 games as a high school coach, DePaul Catholic, Param
Beautiful.
Catholic. Oh, yeah.
Not bad.
Oh, yeah. First 2 games as a high school coach, I'm like, whoa. Okay, this is not what I was expecting. I know this is what I signed up for. Not what I was expecting by any means. So it was awesome. It was awesome to learn like that on the fly. It was amazing because you saw the difference of level from when I played from as a high school and college player to not being the big Northern Jersey. You're like, okay, this is a different type of football. This is a different type of football. Fast forward, we finally got things rolling. Don finally came on board. And that last year, Pope John together, we were top 100 in the country. So we had a good thing rolling there. It was awesome. Just you got the itch to want to do more. So got a chance to go coach at Stonehill College after 4 years at Pope John. Did that for about 1 year. Beautiful thing about being at a school like Pope John, being in the Big North, a lot of traction, a lot of footwork and gossip coming in and coming out recruiting your guys. So because of that, networking, met guys like Eddie Allen, Dennis Dotton Carter, both guys who had Rutgers. They were at Delaware at the time. So they would come up recruiting our guys. A couple of our guys went to Delaware. They both get to UConn. I make the jump to Stonehill College, stayed in contact with them. I was actually going for the DBGA job. That got filled. Eddie Allen was like, hey, we got a special teams analyst job open. So that's how I got into special teams at UConn for those 4 years working with Eddie Allen. So this all comes back to just networking and connecting with people back in Jersey.
Mm-hmm. That's unbelievable. Yeah, Dennis Dotton has really done some great. He's back at Rutgers now.
Yep.
And he did a phenomenal job when he was up at UConn, and but yeah, really, those some great names there, and then so had ended up at Carnegie Mellon. Like, what was that process? What was for you going there?
Yeah, so it was actually an interesting story. So obviously, UConn, great players, have done a great job. Coach Moore's done a great job since he's left. We were actually in a transition year. Randy Edsall's staff is being let go by administration. Jim Moore is being brought on board. So me and other analysts in GA were kind of in flux at this point. They kept us on board, which is awesome. They kept us on board for a year. We all know in coaching that's not natural to happen. So we knew, hey, this is probably 1 year deal, so let's just make the most of it. Probably knew you got to look for something afterwards. But going down to coaches convention, I'm sure if you guys read the article, I just happened to sit next to Ryan Lawson on the flight. He knew a couple of the new guys being hired at UConn, Preston Pearson, who is now with Duke. So it was just funny. He saw the logo. We got to talking. Probably sat next to him for the whole flight, 3+ hours, just chatting about football, talking about life. About 3 weeks after that flight, he gets a job at Carnegie Mellon. So I finished that next year at UConn with Jim Moore's staff. And as we know, we knew it was a 1 year bid, so everyone's trying to find their way. Carnegie Mellon had a DB job open. I was trying to get back on the field, trying to get back in the defense. I feel like I was kind of getting pigeonholed just to being a special teams guy, can really do anything else. So I wanted to make sure I can kind of have avenues open if doors, if opportunities came knocking down the road. So I had my buddy Preston Pierce reach out to Ryan Lawson. Ryan remembers the flight, remembers the conversation. About 2 weeks after that phone call, I'm on campus interviewing. Week after that, I'm here working at Carnegie Mellon. So
amazing.
Awkward encounter, 30,000 feet up in the air on a flight. That's how it happened at Carnegie Mellon, folks.
That's amazing. That's a lot of the things that end up happening, connections and coaching, and sometimes random circumstances bring people together. It also is with you getting into the coaching game, it's a tribute to you reaching out and just being willing to cold call and cold reach out via email, and how all the different ways to do it, to get yourself possibly an opportunity. Like, I always hear people like, "Oh, I'd be interested in coaching." I'm like, well, if you're interested in coaching, like, you have to actually do something about it, right? So you can't just wish upon a star and magically
and
somebody
pray something's gonna happen.
Pray something's gonna happen. So I think that's an important lesson for young coaches. Like, don't be afraid of rejection. That's the majority of what you're going to get. But if you shoot your shot and you shoot it to 100 schools, and one of them says, "Hey, man, give me a call," and that's an opportunity. That's all you got to do is be 1%, man. So you don't need to be shooting 80%. You need to get one to be interested in you, to be able to coach. So it's and most of us should understand that going through a recruiting process. So but so same thing for coaching. You know what I mean? It might be even harder, at least initially. Once you get in, though, I think there becomes more opportunities, right? Because once you start to be in a network, there's obviously coaching clinics and the AFCA and all those kind of things. Lots of networking opportunities to kind of continue to keep yourself in the career if that's what someone wants. I'm curious, when you left so I'm going to go back a little bit of time. When you left accounting and and not just you weren't just an accountant over at some real estate firm, you know what I'm saying? Like, you were at PricewaterhouseCoopers, like
I was
deemed a guy that's going to be a fast riser, right? So in the consulting world, right? So because they don't just hand those jobs out to anybody, right? Those jobs at those big, I think it's big four now, big four accounting firms.
Big four.
You got to be considered someone who really has great potential to succeed, right? Because like you said, you work with some really big clients in the MBA space and stuff like that. So first of all, did people around you, family members, did they think you were crazy? Believe it? What was that when you first decided?
Everyone thought I was crazy, but everyone thought I was crazy, but everyone thought I was crazy for, like, why didn't you realize this sooner about yourself? I think that was more so what it was. Like, this is what you always want to do something with sports. You thought accounting was your avenue, but we all knew that's not what you want to do. You're not a suit and tie 9 to 5 kind of guy. I've never been that kind of guy at all. So I think what was hardest for me is to tell my mother all of this. My mother's an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago.
Got it.
I'm first generation, firstborn. First, my family do a lot in terms of the education going to college. So put a lot of work and effort to get me to this point in my life. So she was upset, rightfully so. But at the same time, as I told my mom, your dream was to give me opportunities, to give me dreams. This is what I'm doing with them. So thank you for all that. So it definitely lessened the blow for her, because she now realized, okay, I worked hard to get these opportunities for my kids. Now they have the opportunity to go do this kind of stuff. So after about a year, people realized what was really happening. They kind of saw the vision. It came a little easy to come home for the holidays, and that first year was rough, I'll be honest. It definitely was rough around the holidays, of seeing family, just knowing what you left behind. And you left something that was guaranteed for something that may or may not work. And so decided whether it's
right. It's always that way too in coaching,
100%,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
Because even when I was at UConn, you're like, is this going to work? You don't know. Like,
right.
UConn was an awkward moment at that time. Is this a stepping ladder, or is this something to get on your resume? Like, at the time, you weren't sure. But that's college athletics,
right?
Yeah,
100%. And at those higher levels, right? Especially when you're, and look, we've talked about it on the show now, where coaching at those level, it's actually a career path, right? Like we see a lot
Yes.
of guys that come out of high school now. Okay, maybe they'd be a D3 guy, struggle through the next 4 years to play or whatever. We've seen them just cut it off right away and hop into coaching as a college student, right? And now
Yeah.
they have 4 years of experience with with NIL and the portal and just the expansion overall of, those power four staffs. You got guys that are the GMs, right? Or the scouting department or the social media stuff. Like the on the field coach used to be pretty much the only job within that itself. Now, with the expansion of staffs and all these other things, guys have more access to be a part of it. And it's really turned into a career path that a lot of
Yeah.
guys are like taking now. And it's, you don't have to be the actual on the field coach to contribute and do really well for yourself. So we've seen that and we've talked about that, but 100% it is an in limbo type of situation, right? Everybody always wants to talk about, when you graduate, you want stability within your job. Well, college coaching sure as hell ain't stability. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
I'm
So,
good.
because you don't know where, I mean, so many guys we talk to, they've been 15 different places, families moved a bunch of times,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, right? But, one of the best pieces of advice was always like, hey, get into it early and then create your path, and then the stability will come with it once you
Yes.
kind of build that resume and get after it yourself. You know what I mean? So when you were first, that transition, and look, Coach Schumann as well, and he can tell you his story from transitioning from, working in the city, doing what he did to then, going into coaching, right? So he made kind of the same move in retrospect, just like you, right? In terms of, suit and tie guy. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're going to go coach. And yeah, everybody looks at us like we're crazy, right? Because it's like, what are you guys doing? Even for me, right? I was teaching, had to, turn down tenure a bunch of times to just go find the right fit. You know what I'm saying? And now it's not, I still get to coach, fortunate enough to work with Dave and do those things, but it's really hard. You have to find the niche, and it's really about, happiness over all that other nonsense, because you'd have
Yes.
been miserable. You know what I mean? Like at this
100%.
point, you'd have been
100%.
miserable.
My
There's
wife
no
says it
doubt.
all the time. She's like, you say you want to go back to the account. Sometimes you get those down days in football. She was like, I know you ain't going back. I remember those days. So I don't want that husband again. She told me that to my face. When you have that
Right.
type of honesty in your corner, it
Oh,
makes
hell
it
yeah.
easy to stay on the path. It does.
No doubt. It's been that way for me for 20 plus years now, and it's funny because and by the way, I go through the same thing. Like I kind of I obviously coach high school for 20 years, but I'm really in like this as a sports entrepreneur because I run the camps and I run the events
Yeah.
and it's definitely obviously up and down, right? And so obviously there've been years that were like out of this world amazing, and then there are years that you're like, maybe I do got to go get like a job, you know what I mean? So like you go back and forth,
Absolutely.
and everybody in the family, they're always like, I was 27, I was making $180,000 a year at that time, and at a very young age, and in I guess it was 2001, that time frame. And it was just, but it was just, I don't know, like I was just bored. And I guess and this probably happened to you a little bit, when you were pretty successful really young, right? So it kind of like working at a big firm, like if you had worked at a job that wasn't like a top firm like the firm you worked in, um maybe you might have been like, okay, I got to keep climbing a little more, see what's out there, right? But when you jump into like a
Yeah.
big firm and you're like, oh, all right, I could see where this is going. And it kind of happened to me. I was in the tech space during the boom in tech in 2000, 99, 2000, when the internet went, was going bonkers and all these stock prices were bonkers, and we were getting contracts like we walked down the street. Uh, talk with a team of guys, and I walk out with a $500,000 deal, and everybody patting me on the back like I was like a genius, and I was like, I just talked to the people for an hour, like, and so I guess I got like, oh, okay, like this is the path, and I think I would like more, right? So, and I didn't know what more was, you know what I mean? So even though I jumped into it, my father's a teacher and coach, 1,000 years of doing. He's still doing it at 50 plus, 60 plus years later. He's at 85. So like he was like, well, why don't you try it? Like you could probably always go back and you know what I'm saying? If you wanted to, you're young, you could go back. And once I at first started coaching track, really, and that was what it was. And I was like, and the football coaches would be like, come coach football. I'm like, nah, I ain't doing that because I'll get caught up. I'll get caught up and I'll just, and they had me against the wall one day. Like, we need you to come coach DBs and wide receivers, and we need somebody. And you went to this school and blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I did it, and I was like, "Oh no, this is what I've been missing." You know what I mean? So I know I know what it's like, and I understand that feeling. I'm curious, when you're coaching, does the fact that you've been around, even though it was only a year or two, that you've been around people that were you probably were around a lot of people that were real successful real fast, right? I'm talking business wise. Does that still stay in your, because it stays in my head, you know what I mean, when I deal with people and when I deal with people in the sports world, because a lot of times people in the sports world don't understand what the way that business people think and what
Yep.
has made them wildly successful. Does that stay with you and kind of how you think about some things as far as putting things together?
I think the reason why it sticks to me because you've seen how college athletics is a business. So the
Yep.
way I try to view is to try to always make the connection. Like, yeah, there's a situation like, man, that very well could have been me right there. But you also chose like this lifestyle I chose to leave. But one reason why I left accounting, and one of the big reasons why I left accounting so early, I didn't want to fall into the income trap. And
Yep.
so what the income trap is now.
Yep.
Imagine I'm 35
Yep.
years old. I got 3 and a 1-year-old and a wife. Like, we're struggling right now. But if I was an
No doubt.
accountant, did this for 12 plus years, how the hell could I leave accounting for 12 years with a wife and 3 kids and 2 kids?
No way.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. There's no way hell I could do it. Is it tough now? Yeah, but like that was the whole reason why I made that decision at 24, 25 years old. Because like you're right, but I was like, if I stayed longer in accounting, how can I leave? And that's what I was afraid of. Like I was getting to the points I got so far down the road. Is like, could I leave? Would I want to leave knowing I have all these responsibilities and expenses to take care of now?
Right.
So I think that was one of my
if you wanted to do it when you were 50, not that it would be too late, you might look up and you'd be like, you know what? Like, I never gave it my shot.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm always one of those kind of guys. It's like, I love accounting. It was awesome, but at the same time, it's like, I can't say I did it. I tried it. There's no regret in that world. Like, yeah, there might be some regret in the money you left behind, but there's no regret.
But that's always going to be. You're always going to have that, no matter what it is. And look, it was the same thing for me. I got out of college right away. I jumped into the pharmaceutical world, like Hoffman LaRoche. Like I was, hey, this is what it is. And I had, some women that I worked with that were like, hey, if you don't want to do this for the rest of your life, you got to get out of it right now because otherwise you're going to be trapped. You're going to be trapped, right? You're going to start making that really good life. You're going to start like living that life. And now you're going to you'll never be able to get out of it because that's the structure that it is. So, look, we're all similar in that retrospect. And we were just fortunate enough. And, look, I mean, a lot of guys, at least even if your awareness came a little later in the process, right? Like at least it came because some guys will either white knuckle it and just say, you know what, this is what it is. Not really find that true, hey, this is what I was meant to do. You know what I mean? So you're in a fortunate place.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys saying it because obviously you guys are coach. You meet a lot of people. You got those days you get down on yourself. You got to keep yourself going.
Of course.
I think one of the biggest things you guys just talked about is this understanding why we're doing this also. Like a lot of us
That's it.
Coaches, and what is the why? I always enjoyed helping people. That was my why.
And your background, I think it's funny because coaching background, or I would say like guys that go in with an education background and going into college is a benefit to it. But someone like yourself who has a business background in the world that college sports is today, right?
Oh, but yeah.
Helps you
Oh,
because I think when you recruit kids and when you're dealing with your coaching staff, you understand that you're investing in people at the same time that you know that there's a business element that you could also prepare your athletes and even the kid recruits that might come, to camp you guys my host is like, hey, this is what the process is. You can't get caught up in how you feel about every single moment about it. And we all have feelings, obviously, and it's always a tough, but you can't get caught up in how you feel. You have to be able to have also a business mindset to make proper decisions for your future, whatever that future is you
Yep.
want. But to know that, because I think that's, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that if I'm at all, close to being right. I think that's important for a lot of the recruits today, and it's also what makes it hard for a lot of times when their parents are advising them more than ever that it's not just whether a coach likes you or likes what you do. There is a large performance element and business element. I mean, like I have this amount of roster spots. I have this amount of guys I can take. I have these type, and this is where you are on the board. And being able to communicate that to prospects, I think is so important because the parents especially, I think kids kind of will get it after if they meet with enough people, but parents kind of always inject how they feel about you, and obviously they love their kids. We all have kids. You love your kids. You think he or she is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but they need to also be able to figure out the best situation for themselves so they don't make a decision that they're at 5 schools in 5 years, right? So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
I think one of the biggest things you really got to talk about, I think you guys mentioned already, is honesty. I'm from Long Island, New York Central. It's a very large immigrant community, people all over the world I grew up with. It's like honesty, being straightforward, people resolves a lot of issues in my mind. I think you telling kids what it is, understanding, hey, you do X, Y, and Z, these are the options you're going to have. But if you do A, B, and C, there are so many more doors that are going to be open with that. So being in a place like Carnegie Mellon, one of the things people ask me, like when I first got here, everyone was like, oh, you at UConn, now you're Division III. What's the biggest difference? I said, I don't have to worry about the kids at Carnegie Mellon once football is over. And everyone kind of gave me like a sideways look. They're like, Coach of Division I. I'm like, that's what the media feeds you. You guys don't really understand what happens at that level. There's a lot of kids who go there because it's financially feasible. They're not studying what they want to study. They're not studying for internships and job placement once football is done. So we're talking, we had kids who are 22 years old, have a college degree, and they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
So I spent the last 4 years of your life making you the better football player. But I've done nothing to help you build as a man, future husband, father, and productive member of our society. And my stepfather raised me. He was one of those things like, I don't care if you play sports. One thing you're not going to be is a bad member of society. I can promise you that. And I carry that same mentality over with our players. And one way I do that is by being honest and being vulnerable with them. I told the guys my journey, why I left. If this is something you choose to do, here are the good things that I hear the bad things. If you choose to say being professional, here are the good things, here are the bad things. So when you go have that ability to be vulnerable, I think that's the ability we don't talk about enough in coaching. Being vulnerable, like I think it allows the place to be open up with you and talk. It's like, damn, coach is human. He's not this guy like when we were playing, it was like, oh, my coach is up here and I just have to listen. Like, no, guys, we're not fully peers yet because I coach you, you're the player. But there's no reason why we can't be respectful and have conversation with one another either.
Right. And I think that's something that's changed within the coaching field itself.
Absolutely.
Whether it's with the more of the access that, either players or parents have to coaches themselves, or just the way that coaching has evolved from that militant disciplinarian type of like, hey, you do it this way because I said so. And that's why, right? Like there is no why, like, or just the development of the athlete where they have access to so much now with, the internet or social media or all those things. Like they ask questions, like they want to know, why are we doing this? And if you don't have an answer for for them, they're going to have the answer because they can go and find it, right? So I think that too, it's something that it progresses along with the level that you're coaching, right? Whether it be, middle school or high school, into college. And then obviously, like, you look at the pro level, and that coaching is so different than even college, where it's more of a partnership than it is you do this because of this. Like, you're trying to all work together, right? And I look, even for myself at the high school level, right? Like, those are the things that really drive me too, right? Like, I'm creating I want to create a good citizen, a good person, a good husband, a good father, a good employee, because most of those guys, like, they're not playing ball after high school. You know what I'm saying? And we get so caught up in the wins and the losses and all this kind of stuff, right? That some of that stuff goes really by the wayside, in that you're really impacting these kids on an entirely different level than you may even understand. Because for the most part, every one of us can point out a teacher or a coach that we loved and changed us for the better. And we can come up with probably more than one that we hated, and they were just like a certain way. And right. And that's kind of what it is. Those things stay with those guys way longer than the wins and the losses. And I think that's it's why I've kind of stayed in the position where I'm at, never wanted to be a head coach. I just always felt like as an assistant, I can get access to the kids more so than a head coach, because those guys tighten up around head coach. They'll tell me some things that they won't tell. You know what I'm saying? That's just my prerogative, right? And I don't fault anybody for not doing it. It's just how I feel. And it's just a position that I really love, having to get to create those comfort levels and, have those guys that, 8 years down the road when they're getting married, like, hit you up and say, "Coach, man, come to my wedding," right? Like, that's when you've really done something. I don't know if you're going to get that in the accounting world.
No, you're not. You might get sued in the accounting world from talking too much. You're not going to get that invite. I can promise you that. You guys feel I was an auditor. I was one of the worst ever accountants.
Yeah.
Came around. Remember that stuff.
Hey, you're not doing this right.
Yes. They're definitely not inviting you to the party for that.
Auditors don't get invited. They get told where the door is.
No. That's funny. Although an important job, but yes, it's definitely an important job. But you're 100% right. Like, well, and I think that's what's interesting is the analytical mindset. So there, coaching there's a feel obviously to coaching, which is, you can improve your feel, you can improve how you relate to players and stuff like that. But then there's also an analytical mindset, the ability to go and figure out not just what the numbers tell you, because obviously there's a lot of numbers you can get handed nowadays on certain things and plays and everything like that. But, even in your own head, to run the numbers in your head of the probability that you got the right guy in the right place for the right situation, right? And that's always going on for a really good football coach, because and you're doing it, even though there's all numbers that can get handed to you, to make quick decisions, you have to know already what those kind of numbers are in your head, so you can make decisions quickly. People talk a lot about analytics. Analytics doesn't make the decision for you, though. Like, it provides you with the information so you make a better decision, but you still got to run those numbers very quickly in your head, and which person is the guy for the job, right? And sometimes it's a feel, and sometimes it's like, a speed matchup. You know what I mean? This guy's faster than this guy. I want to have him on him, and those kind of things, or situational. I'm curious, like, with DBs, especially because of the boomer bust nature of their position, right? Like, they live in that boom and bust world, right? Like, catch gets made on them, they're very, very briefly frustrated, maybe upset, you know what I mean? And then they got to come right back again. And man, a guy might catch 3 balls on them, and then they make a big play, an interception, and the whole world changes for them in an instant. Right. I'm sure.
Right,
and I'm
you're
sure.
right. You live and die by the sword, right?
Yep,
That's
and I'm
it.
sure you're coaching those guys, and that's what makes DBs. That's the beauty of football, that every position is kind of a different beast mentality makeup wise. So talk about the mindset of a DB, and talk about some of the things that you try to really help coach them through.
I think one of the biggest things, like I said, me being a Long Island Central Islip guy, you got to have an ego. You play in that position, you got to have an ego. I think you got to be able to put your ego in check because you're going to get humbled. You're going to get
Right.
humbled. Someone's going to make a catch on you. But I think all that comes from its preparation. I still have one for this DB job. I took at Carnegie Mellon. I was at UConn for special teams analyst for 4 years. I've been out of the DB world for 4 years. What do you think I did on my side time? I was prepping for these interviews. So this all comes, it took 4 years to get this kind of job. I didn't know what job it was going to be, but it all comes down to your preparation. What do you do a Sunday after the game? I know we're not in the office together on Monday. You guys have your classes. We're in the office breaking down film, going over the game plan. What are you prepping yourself throughout the week? I think that's what it all comes down to. Is the DB is like, why do you have the confidence? Why do you have the ego? You put the work in. And I'm not just about the work on the practice field. I'm talking about like what coach sent these diagrams. He sent us these breakdowns analytically. I'm studying that, and I'm just studying it. I'm watching it, tying into the film. That's why I'm confident. That's why I have an ego, because I prep for these moments. So when the moment that shot come, I'm not blinking. I'm attacking at full speed. So that's one thing we talk about with our guys at Carnegie Mellon is everything comes from preparation. Everything. You think football is the most unique game? How much preparation we put into it for 10 to 12 games in a year? You think we spend 40 weeks prepping for 12 weeks. So if you don't have your preparation in order, it's hard to have that confidence and you can go execute because you know bad things are going to happen. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. You hear me tell it to my guys all the time. Like, expect it bad to happen. But when you guys get the opportunity to make something great happen, make it fantastic, be phenomenal at it. And then once you get to the sideline, then we can celebrate. Don't do it on the fields.
No doubt about it. It's that I think that really explains it. They have to have an ego, but they have to be able to keep it in check because you're going to be humbled. And that's the whole. I mean, you might be humbled in a game. You might be humbled the whole entire game, and then the moment comes, you make the play that saves the game, right? And that's one of the things that I think really, really. And when DBs, that situation is, it's really tough because everyone sees it, right? Like if you get
Absolutely.
humbled on in the interior line or at
It gets covered
linebacker,
up. Yep.
it could get covered up a little bit. But a DB, if you're getting humbled over and over again, it's tough because everybody knows it. Everybody knows what your number is, but you just have to stay the course because the opportunity you got to keep learning throughout the game. I think that's a big thing. So obviously we learn in practice and all those kind of things, but until you actually play the opponent, even though you prepared it, DB more than any other position, I think you have to continuously learn during the game. They're not, what this player is doing and how he's adjusting to you because you might plan for certain things and then they're coaching too, right? So they're planning for you and they may come out and do something slightly different and you got to keep learning throughout the game so when that opportunity comes you've been making those adjustments throughout the game with your play and getting yourself in the right position at the right time. That dig they might have hurt you on 3 times in the first half. Now you made that adjustment, you pick that ball off or you break it up on a key important situation. Talk about how you see DBs, what like when you see a DB that's able to do that, like, do you try to communicate that to the rest of your guys? How do you see recognize, I should say, DBs that are able to do that, are able to be able to make those adjustments, not just about their ability, but their ability to be able to do that throughout the course of a game.
Look at the guys who are calm in the heat of the fire. I think that's what when I look at my DBs, I'm intently looking at each one's eye, and I'm looking at the eye to see like who's blinking, who's not, whose eyes are too big, who's locked. Like, coach, we're here, we're present, we'll be okay. What do we got to do? Who's guys like we got to do this, we got to do like who is calm in the heat of the moment. One of the best things I ever learned from Jim Moore. He goes, guys, bad things are going to happen. Like there's going to be fires in football. There's going to be sometimes you got to put the fire out. Everyone just needs to know how bad it is. Ease a situation with calm and humor. He's a situation with humor and calmness, and that's something I always stuck with me because if the DB see me yelling and screaming, that's like they're going to think we don't have it under control as coaches. So since I've been here going to get Mel, we've had a couple of those moments. It's like my second year, we had a game where we gave 400-something yards passing, came down to third down and fourth down. We had PBUs on third and fourth down to win the game. And we did not play well as a secondary that day at all. But those guys were 4-year guys, 4-year starters. They had the composure. Gee, we were getting smoked all game, but I knew when those moments came, just looking those guys right in the eye, and also the preparation we put in all week, they were going to make a play. It was probably the only play they made all game, but it was the play that mattered the most. The last play of the game is always what matters the most.
Yeah, and it's really hard because I think football in retrospect, I think football is different than other sports when it comes to that because you have a play and then you have 45 seconds to it sits in your head, right? And you have time to think. Whereas, basketball, you're up and down the court. I mean, baseball's a lot like that too, where there's a lot of downtime where your mind can go to different places. And look, first thing we talk about, as with defensive back play, right, is hey, you got to have like a short memory, right? Like whatever happened, forget it and go move on to the next play, or any position, right? Within football itself, it's like, hey, we just got to because there's a next one, there's a next one, there's a next one, and if you're still dwelling on what happened, last series, we have problems, right? It's the same thing. Like even with coaching, like I laugh at those coaches that are still complaining about the holding call that happened in the first quarter and we're already in the second half. It's like, what are we doing? Like,
because your players, they ain't giving us 10 yards back, guys. It's done.
Your players, I think, see that and they sense that, right? If they know you're on edge, they are now going to be on edge because you're supposed to be that voice of reason, that calm within the chaos itself, right? It's why I think it's really hard for younger coaches to understand that. And then,
I'm guilty. That was me about 24, 25. That was me for sure. That was me.
100%. And that's where I was going with it, right? Was because as a young coach, for me, the hardest thing is those first 2, maybe 3 years where you feel like you could still play the game, right? You're still wanting to be like out there in it. You know what I'm saying? And now you're trying to like tell these guys where you don't understand why they can't do something that came so easy to you. And you get so caught up in that, in the emotion of it, that now your guys are spinning off the handle because you are, right? So how did you kind of deal with that, coach? Because you said you were guilty of it yourself as a young coach. How did you work through that to kind of get where you're at today, which obviously isn't like we are as young guys, right? So how did you kind of, what were some of the things that you did to kind of transition into, the coach that you are now?
We have to call a timeout when you actually have 11 guys in the field and it's not 10. Your head coach rips you on the sideline. You learn pretty quickly.
Yeah, buddy. Been there.
I coach North Jersey folks. You learn pretty fast when there's a mistake. You learn how to correct it pretty fast too. But that doesn't help for everyone. That worked for me because how I was raised and how I grew up. But I think one thing you have to recognize when you talk to your players, how are they responding to you? And that's one thing when I was at Wilkes University, one class we took, personal professional development, we talked a lot about emotional intelligence. And it's something all my buddies, everyone's working in different realms of business. We all laughed at it back in college. And now 25 years old, 10 years ago, we're like, this emotional intelligence thing is real.
Yeah.
When you speak, how they respond to you. Are they looking at you? What is the body language like? I remember yelling at the kid for a drill. I'm not sure what I was upset about. And the kid's like, Coach, why are you yelling at me? I just don't understand what you mean. When you have a 16-year-old kid telling you that and they look at you and they feel for way, like, you don't want respect that way. You don't. So you have those kind of moments that kind of shapes how you want to lead and why you're leading also.
I think that's very important. And that's very hard for coaches to understand. It takes them time to understand that. Like
Definitely.
You have to, every player is different. And it might be, let's say you're a more high energy guy, you're excitable. Your tendency is to gravitate towards players that are like that, right? That respond to that, I should say, respond to that. So your natural instinct is to be like, oh man, like I like, these kids are my kind of guys. Well, it's just because they respond to what your most comfortable form of coaching is, right? But really good coaches realize that you gotta, okay, wait a minute, like this kid really isn't this kid's a heck of a player, but he's really not responding to this, and I'm sending them in the opposite direction because I'm acting like this, right? And it's not that you're wrong. This is the thing that I think gets crushed on social media, where like you see these two worlds, like where people are like, oh yeah, my coach needs to be this passionate guy. No. That yelling or excitability, that's not good for kids. And the thing is,
Yeah.
no, they're actually both of them can be good, right?
They coincide in my eyes.
Exactly. It depends on the athlete and their personality, okay? And what really drives them. And I think, with younger athletes it's harder to have those conversations. I would say as they get you have to more realize it. But as they get towards like seniors in high school, you can start to really like juniors and seniors. Probably you can have those conversations with, like, hey man, is this working for you? You know what I mean? Like, okay, but it is hard when you have freshmen or
Yep.
sophomores or eighth graders because they don't yet have really as much understanding of themselves yet.
No, not
So
at
you
all.
have
Right.
you have to try and figure it out, which is hard, which is what makes coaching eighth, ninth, 10th graders hard. Um, but when you get to college, like you probably pretty quickly, and I'm obviously from an era, I'm 17 years older than you and about 14 years older than Derek. And so I'm from an era where like they didn't adjust for you. You know what I mean? Like you
No,
had to get on their level or you
we
weren't
had to get on the
playing.
board and
You
get
know what
off
I'm
the ship
saying?
fast.
You had to bury how you felt. But
Yep.
but I think and some of that to me is good. At least the players were tougher from that standpoint. So you didn't have to get overly into the feelings, but I do think that adjusting to where the player lives and what can help them be the best, because ultimately that's what the goal is, right? How can we help them be their best? It's not how I might feel. And I say this too to coaches, like, you know what? Like, it's okay. You could be frustrated that the coaching style that you really would like to use does not work for some of your kids. Understandable. You can be annoyed that they're not as tough as you would like them to be. Understandable. You still have to adjust. You know what I mean? You still have to adjust no matter how you might feel might be the best way. And you still have to adjust because ultimately your job is to get the most out of them. And that's where your success comes from ultimately, right? Is getting the most out of them. So I'm curious how you handle those things, how you've learned to handle that stuff over the years. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to something I said earlier, man, is just being honest with the kids. Like when I sit down, I do our exit interviews for end of season, spring ball. We give them 3 criteria. Hey, this is your strengths, things you had to work on, but his structures and how to improve on those things also. And I'm just honest with the kids. If I make sure they don't wait to the end of the year to kind of hear that stuff, like we're talking about that stuff a couple times a week, a few times
No
a
doubt.
month. I want to make sure these kids are always on the same page with me. So when they talk to the head coach or they talk to the DC, it's like nothing that Coach KK told me should be shocking. We knew all this information going in. So I think you've got to build a rapport with those players and you got to have a relationship with them just to be honest. And one thing I tell the guys is I'm going to be honest with you guys, and I'm not going to be brutally honest. I'm going to be disrespectful. I want to be able to uplift you guys, but there's so much in our reality right now, so much in our world that's not real. Social media is not real. There's so much that is just and it engulfs and consumes our life and our world. Like you can't even tell someone's just being genuinely honest to help you and not taking it as criticism. So when I think I tell our players, they understand. I'm not, guys, and my job is not to knock you down, but it's to critique you to become better. So if you can't understand that, it's gonna be tough. Like, guys, I'm not gonna be a jerk, but I'm gonna be honest about things. I still care about your feelings. I still want you. I'm gonna be empathetic, but this is what you need to hear in order to improve. And like I said, sometimes it's too blunt for the guys. But I think one thing I realized with our guys, especially being at Carnegie Mellon, they want that direct feedback. That's something they kind of crave, something that they need because they're such intuitive kids. They want to find ways to go work on it right now. They don't want to work on. They want that this kid's a high overachievers. They want to fix those problems now. So you got to be able to give them the tools and structures and how to improve upon it. Also,
That's a great point. I wonder
Great
with
point.
like such high achieving kids, as far as especially academically. I would guess a lot of them are more type A personalities, right? And like you said, like they're going to be a success, or have a great chance for success after college. Obviously, because of the university, and they're probably more type A personalities. Do you feel with type A personalities like that in general? Do you have to sometimes work a little bit more from a mental health side of things because they are so, hey man, can I fix this right now? Like, do you have to timeline them on things and those kind of things? Like, these are the things you need to do. Like, it may not go right now, like the way
Yep.
that just like like you're used to. Like you're used to, hey, here's the math problem. Okay, let me look it up. Let me
Here's the
solve it
answer.
immediately. Type of deal. I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely something you deal with at these high academic schools. You have kids there like, I spent this amount of time studying, so I expected to get this result on the exam. And one thing I told the guys is like, that's true for a test where these are the questions, these are your selective answers, multiple choice. That's true. Football is not like that, man. Every game is not like that.
Man.
You saw like the
Nope.
first 10 plays might be scripted. What are the next 10 plays out of 60? You have no idea. So I know the amount of work you put into this, and I love the amount of work that you put into this also. But you, like I said, once again, you got to be honest with these kids from the jump. Because if you try to BS them to come back to honesty, you built a relationship on nothingness. You built it on nothingness. Nothing's ever gonna be able to stand on that because you didn't build it on honesty and respect right away. So you have these hard comments. Like guys, I'm from Long Island, New York, from Central Islip. I grew up in a tough family, tough neighborhood. Like chaos doesn't bother me. Conflict, arguments doesn't bother me. So these kids, they don't know how to deal with that. So that's my thing is having them
because they've never been exposed to it.
Exactly.
Right.
They never had conflict. I've always been successful. So
correct.
I'm going to
and we're not talking like, we're not talking like conflict, like swinging hands or throwing hands.
No,
right?
no,
we're just talking like, we're talking verbal, like
just, criticism. Criticism.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yes.
Because usually they got everything right.
Dave, it's actually, when you look at it, right, like it's honesty, right? And because most people have just, quote, schmoozed them or told them what they wanted to hear because they never wanted to put that kid in an uncomfortable situation or have them have to, go through a little bit of disappointment. And look, this is something we talk about
it can
all
happen,
the time.
and it can happen to all athletes.
100%.
Correct.
I think it does.
It happens, it's different. Like, so with a type A kid, their criticism, when you criticize them, okay, it becomes I'm not good enough. Meaning, like, in their mind, they immediately go to, because they've been good at everything, I'm not good enough, right? When an athlete who is more adaptable, okay, they may be better at figuring out a solution. But then you do also have the athlete that with a high amount of criticism who's had a lot of success because they were gifted athletically. Now you criticize them. Their thought process a lot of times is like, no, you're wrong. So it's a little, it's different. They both don't like criticism, but it's a different thought process as why they don't like the criticism, right? Like, but I think that's what's so interesting about human nature, right? Like, you could have the NFL superstar first round pick have a hard time with criticism, but for a different reason, right? Like, because they've been so successful. Not, I mean, maybe they worked really hard, but they have to be at that level. But because they've manufactured their ego because they were so good a certain way, right? So their thought process is, no, you're wrong. Like, I've always been great, right? Whereas the high strung kid, it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're telling me I'm still not good enough? You know what I mean? Like, it's it's very interesting because it really is. Like, they still have, both groups have a hard time with criticism for different reasons. And it's you as the coach, like, you not only do you have to figure out, okay, this kid has a hard time with criticism, but why does this kid have a hard time at Christmas? So when you might have some type A's when you're at UConn too,
Yeah,
but
of course.
but
Oh, no doubt.
but you're and sometimes that could make it harder. At least at Carnegie Mellon, you probably have a lot more of a certain type of person. At a Division One school, you might have the type A dude, like a Carnegie Mellon kid, alongside with the guy with the super high ego that like can't handle criticism for a different way, and you're constantly going back and forth with it.
Which is tough.
But
Which is really tough.
it's very interesting. I'm curious because you mentioned it really at the early end at the podcast, and I played at UConn. That's where I played my football. And I experienced this myself with guys that I'm friends with. Obviously played with 20 years ago, 30 years, 20 years ago. Shoot, I wish it was 20 years ago. 30 years ago.
It's 20 for me, brother.
Woo. So some of these guys that I'm great friends with have struggled throughout their lives. Okay. Some of them are great football players. And they struggle throughout their lives literally because of poor decisions in school as to choosing a path, meaning I'm talking from an academic standpoint, right? And now this is kind of a little bit more a conversation to the higher ed athlete because you obviously have been there. What are your thoughts as to how athletes can avoid that? So and it happens. Carnegie Mellon kids, they probably have it. Not that they have it all figured out because they're kids, but they have a kind of a path that they're going on, right? How do you try to help these kids who may not have the academic background that a Carnegie Mellon kid does? Like a kid that goes to like a UConn, which is a really good school, but obviously the athletes are going to come from a wide range of academic capabilities. That even the kids who are at the lower end academically, how can they find their path? Like, what would you advise them on? So even though, yes, football, I want to be a pro, all this kind of things, but you need to choose a path. You could always change your path after, but you need to choose your path so you don't end up 30 years down the road still trying to figure it out. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So one thing, even when I was at Pope John, Brian Carlson would say this, and something I still use to this day. He was, "Don't let football use you. Use football to better your life." At some point, like guys, it's very cliche, but all these kids know, guys, football is going to be done. So ask them the hard question: what would you do if you weren't playing football? Like, ask them that simple, hard question: what would you do if football was out of your life? Because I never forget my freshman year at Wilkes University. My stepfather, my mother dropped me off, and my stepfather looked me right in my eyes. He goes, "If football doesn't work out, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "Because you're going to go to school. You're going to get your degree. You're not coming home. You say you want to be a college. You say you want to be a student athlete. Student comes first." Say football is awesome, but if football wasn't here, what would you be doing? So you'd be going to school. And I remember having that conversation at 17 years old. And I think that's something you got to talk about with you guys when they first get to college, when they first step on campus, when you first recruiting them. What are your interests outside of football? Some guys look at it, well, he's not. No, guys, you can be committed and love football instead of other interests. You can. I love basketball. You guys know, so I talk basketball all the time. Doesn't mean I don't love football, but I do love basketball. That was my first love. I know why I love football now, but it doesn't mean I can't talk about basketball. And I think that's one thing for us as coaches. We got to be open-minded about, we got guys here. It's like, yeah, like, coach, I love football, but I also have an interest in playing intramural basketball in the springtime. Well, guy, that works hand in hand playing DB. I got no problem with playing basketball. Don't get hurt. That's my only recommendation. Easier said than done. But you gotta have, once again, you gotta have those hard conversations with guys early on. Like you gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's a philosophy I truly believe in. Something I've been practicing going probably back to middle school and high school with myself personally. But I think you have those conversations with those kids. It's kind of eye-opening for them because when has someone ever asked that to them? People always ask, "Hey, where do you want to go football? What position?" No one ever asks questions outside of football. So if you never ask questions outside of football, why would you think about things outside of football? They go hand in hand, everyone. It does.
Right. And look, and it's something that at the high school level too, right? I already referenced it. Most of those guys aren't going to play college football. So when I go up to them and ask them, "Yo, what's going on? What's up?" They think it's automatically their mind tracks to the only thing I'm asking about is football. No, man, how's your day? How's your classes? How's school? How's mom and dad, right? Like, what's your brother up to? You know what I'm saying? Like, when those guys start to see you invested in them more so than just how many touchdowns they can score, how many tackles they're going to make for you, right? Now that level of comfort allows them, and now it's a respect thing. Like, coach actually cares. Like, so now when I ask them to do the hard stuff, right? Or, it's the fourth quarter, they're going to push a little bit more because they know that my investment in them is more than just so what you can do for me. Right. And I think without that conversation back and forth, I think you don't know that. And then you're simply, just another person who's in their world, but you're not really in their world. It's the same thing if like you're that coach that only shows up in the season, right? Like, no, like I got to see them. I'm in the weight room, in the off season with them, right? So they see me there. I go to their other games, right? Like, what if they're a multi-sport guy? You got to be invested and show that you just care that little bit more. You ain't got to stay the whole game. Just say hi, what's up, and leave after the first quarter. Like, there's some tricks to the trade. You know what I'm saying? That after all these years of doing it, like, and you can go about it the other way. That's fine. And I'm sure you could win games that way too. But that's just not the way I'm up. That's not what I signed up for. That wasn't the way the coaches that had the most impact on me did it, right? That wasn't the way that, some other guys did it that I felt were like really good guys that I kind of model after. Like, they just got a lot more and I know for me as a player, I played better, right? And I worked harder for those guys that cared just a little bit more. And that's really all it took. And it's really hard now in this NIL world of, guys understanding the team dynamic and being about the group, the good of the group, right? But that's what separates football is, it has to be a team thing. You can do really well yourself, but if the other 10 don't, we have problems. So how do you create that camaraderie within your room, coach, between players and guys? How do you get them to kind of look at the greater good and not just so much the individual, where in this world of social media and the likes and the comments and all this other kind of shit, like that just seems to be like what's in the forefront and that's what's on display. How do you get your guys to still invest in team and what goes on, for the greater group, greater good of the group?
Fortunately for us, we don't necessarily deal with NIL. We are in the transport. We're not dealing too much with NIL, but I think this is still a problem no matter you deal with money and not having money. I think you got to have those conversations with the guys. You got to talk about supporting one another. Give them an example of what it looks like. I think with the camaraderie piece of it also, it goes back to recruiting. What kind of people are you recruiting? You want to bring people in all different walks of life, but it has to work. You can't bring a bunch of different and not be able to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know and understand like who your personnel is, who the type of guys you're recruiting. But once all those guys are here, you got to make sure it's always based on love and respect. And that's something you hear me talk about with our guys. Yeah, at the end of the day, guys, we all want to be the starter. We all want to be the All-American, be the guy. But at the end of the day, I can't do that without love and respect of my teammates supporting me also. If I get there by stab someone in the back, I brought the wrong guy into the room, guys, and that's my fault. That's my fault. That guy's in the room. That's on me as a coach. I recruited that guy here. So we're not basing this thing off love and respect, guys. What are we basing this thing off of that? Because at the end of the day, 10 years from now, that guy who you might call, who you haven't spoken in 10 years, he's going to pick up because he still loves and respects you because of the 4 years you guys spent together. 4 years of us having those meeting rooms, having those hard conversations, happy when winning, crying on each other's shoulders when we lose, being vulnerable with one another. Like one thing we do in our deep room, something we do with Carnegie Mellon, it's like coaches will step out and the older guys leave the room. And they talk about like, hey, like, give us a time when you were successful. Give us a time when you failed. And the older guys lead that. That's something that's before I got here. It's something we've got to kind of carry through. But I think part of the culture is establishing that with the young guys coming in. It's got to be reinforced by the older guys who've been there with you as well. So I think it's got to be a top-down and also a bottom-up approach with it. You got to bring the right guys in, and the guys who've been in that room, you've got to get those guys to be on the same point as you. So when those new guys come in, I'm not around them all the time, but the older guys have got their back. And I think in a place like Carnegie Mellon where it is a grind, this place is a grind academically, kids know that. kids understand why they came here. So they want to help one another because they want to see their guys be successful. You want to see your guys be successful. I think that's the biggest thing. Is like you don't want to see your boys fail. And that's one thing I told my guys, like how to be better the situation after we're gone. Leaving a better place than what you found it. That's how I think that's how you build it together. It's like, guys, win this together. We got to build this up together. I'm gonna leave. You guys all gonna leave. How do you build it better than one spot than you had it before?
No doubt about it. I got one or two quick DB questions for you, and then we'll let you go.
Okay.
And by the way, this has been phenomenal. Okay, so technique wise, there's now, from what I've seen, three different ways of basically approaching how you're moving backward to play DB, meaning backpedal, shuffle, or now like you see a lot of the scooch stuff, right? What what are the benefits of each one of those, and which one the kind of do you favor using, or do you use them in different situations, different techniques?
I think with my special teams background, and that's one thing I loved about special teams. It was very unpredictable. You didn't know what you were always going to get. So at the same time, like, yeah, you can use this technique, but it all depends on what the situation is. And I think that's one thing about defensive backs, how you teach special teams. You got to get these guys a toolbox. You have to be able to fill the toolbox with different tools and traits for them to be successful. I think you have to teach them when to use these tools in each situation. But at the same time, all guys also have to understand and know when to use them as well. So I think all those are essential to what we do. Like one thing you hear me talk about a lot with our DBs, like safeties. You guys will probably backpedal and repedal more than the corners. Corners, you guys will probably do more of a crossover run, sideways run, more than safeties, just because the nature of the position. So I think you have to coach and teach all that stuff also. I think scooch pedal is something I've really gotten big the last couple of years. A buddy of mine, Kyle Wiggins, who's Sacred Heart University in Connecticut, corners coach. He's been a real good guy. Yeah, he's awesome. He's been a real good guy reaching out to. But it's one of those things you realize it's kind of more natural for the guys to do that rather than to walk out. And I was always a big walk out guy. But you just realize like some people athletically, it just doesn't work for them. Some people rather just play catch
100%.
rather than playing scooch catch. So I think all those tools are useful. I think you got to have them all in your DB toolbox, but you have to teach those guys when to use them also. Because we're playing cover 3, single receiver. I don't mind the guy shuffling to get into a tempo crossover run because it's 3-by-1, one receiver. You can play. You're not playing the man-to-man, but I could be more aggressive on him while playing the quarterback eyes because one receiver to my side. Like rather, hey, we're playing our quarters, playing 2 read. It's probably easier to scooch rather than just having to fast a tempo pedal out to read number 2 before he goes to the flat, then get to my pedal after. So I think you got to be able to teach all that kind of stuff. I think there's benefits to it all, and there's also weaknesses, but I think it all depends on the situation. Like we're playing man-to-man. I don't want any DB shuffle. What the hell are you doing shuffling the man-to-man coverage? Especially playing off. So I think that's what it comes down to. Like I think you're going to shuffle them, squat, and play catch. That's different.
Right.
I think what is the situation? But I think all those tools you got to have in your DB toolbox. You got to have them all.
And then I guess what they get more comfortable with is what you kind of start to allow them to play, and what actually obviously lets them play best, right, for each situation.
100%.
I'm curious too. Then
I will say this. I hate to cut you off.
Yeah,
I still think DBs have to learn how to back, but I think that's the base line for DBs. You got to learn how to back. But I think
that's the beginning. Right?
That's the beginning. You got like everything else is building off top of that, the shuffle, the scoot.
DB 101, man. Like you got to be able to backpedal. Like it's just.
I told guys, I look at 3 simple things when I'm recruiting. Can you backpedal? Can you flip your hips? And can you get out of your break? If you can do those 3 things, we can work with you. We can teach you everything else. But those are 3 core things you got to be able to do as a DB in my eyes.
Yeah, you know what drives me crazy, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I hate when I see DBs, coaches teaching DBs to backpedal like they're running forward, with arms swinging.
Yeah.
Where instead of, up,
this is more of
up and down,
the shoulders, just relax.
So it bounces the shoulders and nice and loose. But it drives me crazy because I can't tell you how many. Now, obviously, I had Derek who knew what he was doing in my last couple of years as a head coach, but I see it because I coach youth now. And but throughout my career in high school as a head coach, I would just over and over and over again and be like, "Who taught you that? Like, why do you teach that?" And it was just. I would be like, when they're backpedaling and you're pumping your arms. It's one thing if you're doing a track workout and you're doing it for like, what's the word, muscular purposes, right? And for running. But efficiency as far as transitioning, it's the worst thing you could do because you're pushing an extra movement backward when you're going to try and either turn or go forward, right? And so, or at an angle, and it drives me crazy. I'm curious. Is it just that there's so many bad DB coaches out there in the world, or where? Like, I see it so much. Derek, do you see it a lot?
What with
Do you
the back pedal?
do you see high school coaches teach that? I see it all the time.
I just see guys teaching the position based off of like an individual this. They don't put it into, I got to teach them this because this is the scheme we're doing, right? Like I see a lot of guys go out there and run through guys individual. And then when I see them go to team or to go to 7-on, and it's not even anything that comes close to what they were doing in individual, right? Because they just watched a YouTube video and they're like, this looks really good. I got a lot of cones, right? Like all this shit. And then the kids get out there and you got no clue, and they have no clue, one, what the overall scheme is, two, why we're doing this, and three, how to do it, right? So it's part of it now that, for us, it's like, hey, coaching 101, man, like line up your individual with what you're doing schematically, because those skills should be now transitioned into the bigger picture. That's what you're working on. Don't just go out there and work on shit to just throw shit against the wall. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but that's the way of the world because everybody has access to freaking watch a million videos on YouTube. Like, it just is what it is. It's brutal.
I think, and Derek, that's a great point. It's like at the end of the day, what teaches, and I think that's something with my background. People like, I was coaching high school ball. I was a phys ed teacher from pre-K 3 to 7th grade, on top of high school football. I literally dealt with every age group that possibly is as a coach. I've dealt with the 3-year-olds up to the 22-year-olds now coaching college. So with that being said, like, it's great we have all this information. How is it best suited for your kids, though? And I think that's we're at the point now, and the players are dealing with this. This is information overload. There's so much stuff out there. What is right? What is not right? I don't know. I'm trying to find information for myself. So how do you better funnel that into what you guys are doing on a daily basis? I think it goes back to what you said, Derek. Like, what is the scheme? How does this correlate? Right. How does this coincide with the scheme that we're doing? So like Coach Schumann, like, so you like I see it also, but at the same time, it's like, is that the trainer? Is that this high school coach?
Right.
Like who's coaching the kid? I think that's
right.
Kid. I don't
know.
No doubt.
I mean,
That's a great point.
I got the college guys. Like, if you'd have saw my stats in high school, you like, how's this guy even coaching now? If you would have saw me back in high school and college early on.
Well, it's something too that as a high school coach, but also involved in like the 7-on-7 world, or whether we're doing a showcase or something, right? Like it's literally the first thing I say when I get whatever position group I have and say, fellas, like, you're here today to get better, right? But what I'm going to teach you, right, is how I teach it and how I'm asking you to do it today. When you go back to your team, your whatever you are, right, your coach, you do it that way. Again, and I use the reference, coach, like you did. I'm giving you tools to put in your toolbox. Some of you may know this. Some of you may have never even heard of some of the things that we're doing. Like, I'm just adding to your repertoire. And whether you ever use any of this, like, I don't know. But at least you're going to have it. And today you're going to do it like this. And some of the guys do it well. Some of them take to it. But, the worst thing ever is being that high school coach. And now all of a sudden you got a kid come back to you and he's like, oh, well, my trainer said that this is the way you do it. Right. I make it very open that, like, there are a million ways to do what we're doing. Right. And to get to the ultimate goal of winning whatever it is in any way. Right. There's 1,000 ways to do it. It's just today you're doing it this way. And then when you get back to your team, it might be the same. It might be different. Every coach, but I'm never going to be the guy that's like, hey, this is the only way to do it and you have to do it. Nah, man. Like, everybody's just trying to be really good. You know what I'm saying? And you're trying to put that kid in the best situation. And now you might unlock something for that kid that, wow, I do this a lot better. You know what I mean? Or, hey,
Yep.
maybe I wasn't good at being square and backpedaling and weaving. And now if I tilt or I can scoot out of there, like that helps me. And look, good coaches will see that and you adapt on the fly, right? I mean, even Nick Saban's gone on record as going from seeing guys saying, hey, he could never do this as this. And then all of a sudden he saw a guy do it. And now he flipped his entire way he was teaching it, saying, oh man, like we really got to look at this, because look, if you want to be successful, put the kid in the best spot, and not all of them are going to be the best at what you do. So you got to find a way. And if that means you got to change or teach it different or, tweak some things here or there, well, then that's what being a good coach is all about. Don't be stuck in that one track mindset of like, this is the only way to do things. Because I think that's you're hurting your kids, right? Like you're hurting kids if you're doing that. But
I think it's coaching is teaching at the end of the day. Like you go into a class as a teacher, is like every student you have in your class is not going to be the same academic level.
No way.
Yeah, I know we got the no kid left behind and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, as a teacher, you take pride knowing that bottom kid out of 30 is going to pass and be successful. It's no different from coaching. Like, you have to be able to work with the clientele you have and know that everyone is different and everyone's going to have different needs and wants also based on what you're providing. So to say as a coach, well, this is the way I want it. Well, why do you want it that way? There's a reason for it also. Sometimes kids may not understand it. And that's where the disconnect is. They just don't understand why you want it this way. Because they think it should be this way based on what they're seeing. And they're not understanding why you want it based on what you're viewing it as.
Final question, and I think that's, by the way, those are great dialogue, Derek and Coach KK. It's really it's great points. I mean, I remember the first time, and Derek knows who the guy is, but I saw this really fast kid that I had on my team, and he just did not want to backpedal, and he crossed over, ran, and I was like, okay. He was the best player I ever had. And I was just like, everybody else was backpedaling or shuffling. And I was like, nah, you do what you're most comfortable. And he would just, obviously he was fast enough and he was a great athlete and he could make plays everywhere. And I was just like, okay, I was probably limiting him by having him backpedal. You know what I mean? Like he was so fast that like if he was turned sideways and could see everything, he was actually fast enough to be able to see everything, recover. He'd bait guys and throwing deep balls on him, and he just close and pick it. And I was like, well, you know what? Like he's different than everybody else here. You know what I mean? And so I should let him do what makes him best and not pigeonhole him. But it's a great dialogue on that. All right, last question on the defensive back stuff, and I'll let you go because we've taken too much of your time, and I can't thank you enough, Coach.
Thanks for having me again, guys. Appreciate it.
No doubt. DB wise, and I've heard a lot of different ways, and I might be able to guess what your answer is, but I don't want to do that. When you have your best DB, like whoever your best corner is, right? There are some coaches that are like, hey, I like to play my guy on this side, you know what I mean, and keep them on their side. Or there are some coaches that like to flip them, and it's preference. And sometimes, obviously, it's the ability of the guy you have. I'm curious if you have a preference, when you have like your corners. Do you like them to just play one side to get most comfortable, or do you like, this is my best guy, I've got to put him where I think it should be best? I'm curious, or do you kind of gear it depending on your year of what kind of guys you have?
In the perfect world, to me, way I view DB, like you gotta be able to play it all. I gotta be able to play field down and left, right. There's gonna be times I'm gonna be stuck on the opposite side of the field. What am I going to do at that point? You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So I think when we're in spring ball, we normally do field and boundary, but in spring ball, we do left and right. So those guys get a feel of being the free safety to the field, being a boundary guy to the boundary. The next day, hey, I'm the field guy on the right side. I'm the boundary guy on the left side. I want to put those guys in tough situations. So when the tough moments do occur in season, and we all know they will, they're ready for the moment. It doesn't catch them off guard. They know what to do. They know how to handle those situations. Yeah, it may not be the most ideal situation, but I know what to do. I've been here before. I think it goes back to what I said earlier, man. It all comes back to preparation. How are you prepping those guys for those moments? Like we've been in a situation where you're nickel and dime, you want the guys on the opposite side of the field. That's a long way to go back and forth on the opposite side of the field coming from the sideline. So you see guys that are getting gassed, you just have to realize, I think it all depends year to year. But in my ideal world, I want guys to be able to play both sides, field and the boundary, left side, right side. We can change it based on the personnel we have year to year, but in a perfect world, I want guys to be able to do it all. Because at the end of the day, if you want to be a nickel and dime team, those guys have to be able to do it all.
Right.
You want to go
Absolutely makes it much tougher to prepare, right?
100%.
Oh,
I want guys, you can play left side, right side. Because I want you to be able to play both sides. When we go nickel and dime, I want you inside.
Yep.
So you got to be comfortable. I can't just have you nickel and dime just on one side. Like, no, you got to be able to play
Right.
it off. So I want those guys to be in tough spots because we want to be multiple here on defense. We want guys to be able to play man coverage, play cover 2, play cover 3, play our base quarters. Like, and so with that being said, you've got to prep those guys in those situations that spring ball and early on in training camp too, in my opinion.
Awesome stuff, Coach. Really, really awesome stuff. We can't thank you enough for coming in.
You guys again, man. I've never done something like this before. This is actually really cool. So thank you guys.
Now, appreciate your time, Coach. We know you're out there getting after it, recruiting and doing what you got to do, finishing up semester and all that stuff and whatnot. So we appreciate you setting aside some time to talk some ball, man.
Appreciate you guys. And you guys have a great day. Hopefully the weather's out there is nice in Jersey.
It is today.
It is today.
We'll
buddy,
take it.
Who knows what tomorrow, Berg?
You know how
all
that
right,
goes.
Coach. Have a great day.
Take it easy, man.
Thanks,
Take
buddy.
care, fellas.
See you later.
All right,
Be good,
bye.
guys. Thank you.
Wow, really, really good stuff, dude. That was good. Kudos to you. Great guest.
He's good,
Great
man.
guest.
That was awesome. I like when we can talk to those some of those guys that have a good, like have a different track record or obviously like come from a different background and whatnot and kind of just have put it all together. And now, and being out of school like that, where there's some like, the academic standards and the parameters on it, like, it's a big move, but he sees, the process to it. And you know what I mean? And he made a move being tabbed kind of a special teams guy and now jumping into like more of a DB role, a position specific role, whether you're coming from a power 4 or not, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a transition and you gotta know what's going on, especially when you haven't really like had that by title, you know what I mean? So, that head coach that's over there, to hire him in that position, I think is, really just kind of, showing a different path as to you don't have to be that person in order to come and coach something at a high level, but kudos to him for being prepared for that.
No doubt about it. I think he's got great perspective and feel too, which is really
no doubt
good. I mean, that kind of is like a theme for the majority of guys that we've interviewed. Like they got a really good feel for people and athletes and what
right.
gives them a chance to be successful. I mean, I think like when you cut through it all, no matter what their style is, they all have to have that. Like they got to be able to have a good feel for what helps to make the athlete successful and understanding of that because they're all different. Like some guys are,
right. But no, I think it's also like it's just especially in college football specific, right? Like you have to have the ability to recruit and recruiting
adapt,
is people, like if you don't have that knack or that like just that social ability to connect and have those conversations, whether it be on the surface level or deep, getting really into it when guys are going to sign on the dotted line, dude, like you have to have that ability to connect with not just the player themselves, but those that surround those players, whether it be parents or handlers at this point, you know what I'm saying? Or high school coaches or just some of those conversations, especially when you're talking a school like that, where the academic side, like you're dealing with a different type of cat, right? I mean,
yes.
And those parents are going to be different, right? Or just that whole world is so different than, the regular middle of the road of, whatever other program or school you're looking at, right? Like those are so specific when it comes to that aspect, because for the most part, like they don't need the football players to keep going. You know what I mean? In terms of the school, like they're going to have an enrollment of students that they have to, they're actually like doing you a favor, obviously, by bringing you in there. Right. And now you get the benefit of getting to play ball on top of having and leaving with a degree that's really going to set you up, you know? So it's, you know, you really got, it's a whole different mentality, you know, in terms of just the type of kid or the type of person you're kind of recruiting on those levels. But it's pretty good.
Absolutely. There's no doubt it's is a different type of athlete, and he's been, you know, obviously in all the worlds from that standpoint. So he knows what that you know, Division 1 is like. He knows what the high academic world is like. It's it's really interesting, you know, having someone who's coached at those different, very different levels.
Right.
And but you're adapting to the different personalities of your players. And by the way, when he was at UConn, that was a tough time period. That was Randy Etzel's
That
round two.
transition, right? That
Well,
transition
that was
from
Randy Etzel round 2.
correct.
And
And then the transition to Mora, right? And look, and he's, you know, he talked about that instability going from that accounting world where he had stability and a very, very bright future, you know what I'm saying? Like doing what he thought he wanted to do, to now make that transition and realize like, hey, that ain't the world that I want to live in. And then kind of be in flux with when Mora came in and, you know, being retained and then making moves. Like, I mean, that's a very like temperamental type of world to be living in, and just
hmm
kind of like and still having the ability to set that stuff aside and go out there and do your job at the highest of levels, you know, really not knowing like what the next step or what it is like is really a credit to kind of the whole, you know, be where you are, boots on the ground, and do the best job with the one you have now, and the next one will come about like down the road. Like there's your prime example of just do what you're supposed to do and then be prepared for when an opportunity arises. Because had he not been prepared or not done whatever, like he ain't set to go get interview for a DB position, you know?
No doubt about it. Really, really interesting how
Yeah.
you know how his career's gone, and I think that it's the tribute to, you know, his ability to continue to like strive for what he wants to do. And so good stuff. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Tomorrow we're 10 a.m. with Chaz Locke, who's going to be talking to us about game day skins, which is a really cool, I don't know, it's a really cool thing.
Game day
You know,
skins. Oh, skins. Okay, yeah. That's the one you
it's
were
a
telling me about last.
yep, helmet cover, strictly optics, right? There's nothing in terms of protection or guard, you know, guardian like, or, you know, has nothing to do with protecting your helmet any more so than another helmet. It's a pure look thing, kind of like a decal, and you know, just adds a different, you know, I guess, you know, it's another option for teams if they wanted to do a different type of helmet rather than going out and having to buy all brand new helmets and get them painted. So really interesting conversation we'll have tomorrow in terms of like that field, because I've seen them. They look amazing. Like I think they're cool as hell. And it's just, you know, something within the world of football that's just, it's just one of those things, man. Like it'll be really cool.
Cool. Sounds good, man. That'll be
All
that's
right,
10
buddy.
tomorrow. Is that 10
Yeah, 10
tomorrow
a.m.
also?
Yep.
All right. Have a great day, man. Enjoy.
All right, man. Yeah, enjoy.
All right. See you later.
Later.